for high blood pressure and strokes. You've probably heard all of this. Family history of high blood pressure, if you're African or Caribbean, if you're male or female after the menopause, obese, diabetic, if you smoke, if you have high salt in your diet, if you're stressed all the time, or if you do not exercise, a sedentary lifestyle. We know that those are the risk factors. Well, look, it doesn't take a genius to understand that the risk factors are actually the causes. Those risk factors lead to heart disease and high blood pressure. And the thing is, if you have more than one, they multiply your risk. They don't just add, they multiply your risk. So if you smoke, you're overweight, and you're stressed, your risk multiplies many, many times. But some of those risk factors don't seem fair, do they? Let's go back to them. Family history of hypertension, we've dealt with that. Look, does that mean if my mother and father had high blood pressure, I have to get high blood pressure? Absolutely not. We've said it's lifestyle that really determines our health and our longevity. What about Afro-Caribbean? Do we have any Afro-Caribbeans? Any people from Africa or the Caribbean watching here? Yes, we have quite a few. Why should it be that Africans have higher blood pressure than everybody else? Why should that be? That doesn't seem fair. Now, when I ask people, they say, oh, maybe it's because of slavery or we have a harder life. Well, no, that's not true. The answer is quite simple. The reason why Africans have a high blood pressure is because we come from hot climates. That's why our skin is dark. And because we perspire, we need to hold on to water a little bit more than Caucasians. So our bodies hold on to salt a little bit more, and where salt goes, water follows. So because we hold on to salt more, and then we have a wonderful Western diet which is riddled with salt, we become much more sensitive to salt, and our blood pressure rises more than everybody else. But the good news is you just simply have to eat less salt. If you eat less salt, your risk goes down. Now, what about the third one? Why are men having higher blood pressure than women? Well, the answer is always obvious, because men have to live with women. Isn't that the answer? No? Okay. All right, maybe not. Okay. No, the real answer is that women have this hormone estrogen in their system, and up until the menopause, it actually lowers the blood pressure. After menopause, the blood pressure goes up just like everybody else. So those are the unfair, or the seemingly unfair, issues. Yesterday, Sister Finley was talking about water. Water is essential for lowering blood pressure. I must say I thoroughly enjoyed, I took notes from yesterday's talk. I thoroughly enjoyed that talk. Water absolutely is one of the cheapest, simplest ways to lower blood pressure. Let me explain why. Anybody love swimming here? Anybody love swimming? Okay, right. More Caucasian hands up than Africans. That makes sense. You see, the continent of Africa, we excel in middle distance running, right? We do. We win all. I mean, it's rare that an African doesn't win a middle distance or a long distance race. I'm yet to see an Olympic swimmer coming from the continent of Africa, maybe sometime soon. But let me explain something. Imagine trying to swim in a swimming pool filled with honey. Can you imagine that? Swimming in honey. Imagine how hard it would be. I mean, it would probably take you a week to do a length. You'd be exhausted because it's so thick. You'd have to use so much force. Well, imagine your blood becomes thicker. The thicker your blood becomes, the more effort your heart will have to do to push it through the system. Now, what makes the blood thick? Low amounts of water. What do you have to do? Drink more water, your blood pressure comes down almost immediately. Almost immediately. That's the power of water. Okay. Now, hypertension is described as a disease. I look at it as a warning sign. Because if your blood pressure is going up, it's telling you that there are lots of things under the hood that are getting worse. So things like cancer, that's going to be caused by the stress hormones, Alzheimer's disease, anxiety, depression, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease. All of these are bigger problems down the line if you don't deal with your high blood pressure, because your high blood pressure can be caused by stress, and those stress hormones, even if you get the right pill to lower your blood pressure, they're not going to deal with the cancer, they're not going to deal with the Alzheimer's. Let me show you this picture just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a picture of my first car. My first car. It actually still looks quite good. That's not the actual car. My car looked a lot worse than that. I scraped up all the money I could get to purchase this car. When I purchased it, I didn't have enough money for petrol after. That was all my money. So when I started to drive it, and the warning lights were going off, I had no money to fix the car. So I just had to keep on driving. More warning lights came up. Then one day, steam came out of the engine, the car stopped. It became incredibly expensive for me to deal with. That's how I think about high blood pressure. It's a warning sign that something worse is coming down the line. And it demonstrates what I believe is one of the best descriptions of disease. This is from Ellen White. It says, disease is the effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. That's what disease is. It's your body trying to deal with what you've done wrong. And that's what blood pressure is. So let me give you a further example. Because sometimes blood pressure really is essential. You need high blood pressure. Let me explain what I mean. Our brains, our hearts, our organs, they all need a certain amount of blood every hour, every minute, every day. Now, if those arteries get narrower because they're filled with plaques of fat and cholesterol, your brain still needs the same amount of blood. So how do you get the same amount of blood through a narrow tube? You have to push it faster. If you push it faster, the only way to do that is to raise your blood pressure, to push it faster, to make your heart beat faster. That is one of the conditions. So if you then start to remove that plaque by a healthy lifestyle, your blood pressure starts to come down, your risk starts to come down. And that is done with a healthy plant-based diet. And, you know, I would say that the key to high blood pressure, the food that I would recommend the most are greens. The darker, the better. The darker, the better. What they're able to do, they're able to cause your arteries to open up because they have a natural ingredient in them called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide, by the way, is the active ingredient of a drug called Viagra. Silence, okay? Nobody's ever heard of the drug Viagra, obviously. But that is the drug used for erectile dysfunction, for those of you who don't know. So greens contain the natural ingredient that will open up your arteries and allow you to have blood flowing to your brain and everywhere in your body. In fact, I hear lots of people say to me, Dr. Chitty, especially the men, Dr. Chitty, yeah, I do want to get healthy, I do want to lower my blood pressure, but don't give me rabbit food, please. Well, the one thing I know about rabbits is that they do not need Viagra. I'm going to move on. Okay, fantastic. In fact, let me say this, because erectile dysfunction is a very important point. And for the men in the audience, and even your wives or everything, please listen. When you get one episode of erectile dysfunction, one episode, your risk of having a stroke or a heart attack increases to 1 in 4 in the next 5 years. I'll repeat that. So if you have one episode of erectile dysfunction, you have a 25% chance of having a heart attack or a stroke in the next 5 years. So when you get that episode, don't just go for the pill. What you should do is go for reversing that disease so that you will improve your blood flow throughout your body. Fantastic. Now, you can't talk about blood pressure without talking a bit about exercise. I will be dealing with more exercise later in the week. And the truth is, you should exercise, but do the best exercise you can. Do the exercise that you enjoy the most. I would say, though, if you have high blood pressure, you shouldn't do strenuous exercise. No weight training, no strenuous running, walking, swimming, cycling is absolutely fine, because it will peak your blood pressure if you do too much exercise. So just go for a walk every day, at least for an hour. That is the way you can reverse your high blood pressure. So let's go back to where we began. You know, this was a very wise man, Solomon, when he came up with the idea, and he said, above all things, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, that is a profound statement. That's a profound statement. Because the thing that issues out of your heart is your blood. And it's telling us there that the thing that issues out of our heart is life. You know, we didn't know in the world until 1624 when William Harvey discovered the function of blood. That stuff that came out of the heart, he realized, gives life to the tissues. That's the first time we realized that. People have been dying in battle, bleeding for centuries, but we didn't know what blood did. He discovered it. But back there, Solomon told us the function of blood. But there's something more interesting about this statement. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. What it's really telling us is that the issues in our lives do not come from our neighbors. They don't come from they don't come from my work. They come from my own heart. Oh yes, I may be surrounded by stressors. I may be surrounded by people who seek to do me harm. But the determination as to whether it affects my body, my mind, or my spirit is my own choice. It comes from my own heart. So if we really want to guard our hearts physically, absolutely, we can do that with the diet and the lifestyle. We will be talking about stress and depression later in the week, or probably next week. But if we really want to guard our hearts, what we're really going to have to do is take time to forgive, to understand, to let go of issues that are causing us stress. Beyond belief. We're going to be talking more about that throughout the week. Look, I'm going to be doing actually consultations this week. Tuesday and Thursday this week, I'm going to be here between the hours of 2 and 4, and we're opening it up for anybody to come with any problems that they have. I'm happy to do so. Now, some of you may be in Rwanda or Nigeria or South Africa. You may not be able to get here. I think you can see my details that you can contact me or follow on Twitter or Instagram, and you'll see lots of advice on how to combat many of the things that we're doing. Now, tomorrow you'll have the delightful Sister Finley. I will see you the day after. Have a good evening.